In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Link gets to play the hero and save the day. But every hero's journey is complicated. Sometimes achieving your goal as a player means blurring the lines of morality just a smidge. Beware, Tears of the Kingdom spoilers ahead. It can be tough to get by in Hyrule, but luckily Link is a survivor. Whether he's climbing mountains or paragliding across the plains, Link has all the know-how needed to get around the wilderness. Unfortunately, survival doesn't just require careful planning and repeated feats of strength. In theory, Link limits himself to only fighting evil creatures across the land. But in practice, surviving in the wild requires Link to kill some animals. A hero's got to eat, and you need to prepare some hearty meals if you want to keep Link's heart containers full through the toughest of battles. Mushroom skewers can only take you so far, and meat just happens to be the most filling food out there. It's possible to avoid hunting birds or other wildlife, but even the most dedicated vegetarians might find themselves tempted to grab some small animal for an elixir. After all, a single sticky lizard is a small price to pay for scaling a mountain in a rainstorm. Hyrule is an absolutely massive kingdom that demands players spend dozens of hours exploring its detailed landscape. In Tears of the Kingdom, there are more ways to get around than ever before. Thanks to Zonai devices, players can ride in hot air balloons, drive makeshift cars, or just strap a rocket to their shield and see what happens. When it comes to traveling across the surface of the kingdom, though, it can be best to go back to basics and find a horse to ride. Wild horses dot the fields and hills of Hyrule, and Link can ride any one of them wherever he needs to go. That's not to say the horses are always going to be thrilled by the idea. After leaping onto a horse's back, Link needs to try and calm them down, eventually convincing them to help him save the world. Not every horse is willing to listen though, and more than once during a playthrough, you're gonna get bucked to the ground.
Excuse me, princess.
Horses, beware, it doesn't end after Link gets his first ride. You can board a number of horses at one of the stables across the land, and since every horse has a different set of stats, there's definitely an incentive to try and capture more than one. Wild horses need to watch their back whenever Link is around, or they might just find themselves riding into battle against a big-ass baddie like Gleeok. The Travel Medallion might be one of the single most useful items in Tears of the Kingdom. Much like it did in Breath of the Wild, the Travel Medallion lets players drop down a checkpoint where they respawn if something goes wrong. This is particularly helpful when you're moving across Sky Islands, where one wrong move can send you plummeting away from your objective. Link doesn't start the game with the Travel Medallion in hand, and there's plenty of exploration and questing to go through before it gets unlocked. But that can put players in an awkward position. Picture this, you've just spent 20 minutes carefully scaling a collection of islands, using every tool at your disposal to reach a temple in the sky. Just before you arrive, you miscalculate a jump and start falling back to the ground. In that situation, you've got two choices: panic smash your glider button, safely float to the ground, grit your teeth, and make the climb all over again. Or you can press that dive button, smash Link face first into the ground, and respawn at the island you were just at. On the one hand, seeing your favorite hero brutally killed is bad enough when a Talus is at fault, but it's much worse when you're the one doing it. On the other hand, 20 minutes is 20 minutes. If Nintendo didn't want this to happen, they would have given us the Travel Medallion on the Great Sky Island. One of Link's greatest assets as an adventurer is his ability to be stealthy. In both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, he can crouch down and scout groups of enemies, planning out the perfect strategy before he sneaks his way into position to launch a surprise attack on his enemies. More often than not, the stealthy approach is the safest one, so Link's gotten plenty of practice at sneaking around. He might have even gotten too much practice because now it seems like he can't stop sneaking up on everyone he meets. Link has a habit of approaching NPCs from behind, and whenever he initiates dialogue, they cry out an alarm. Poor Devord is looking out over the Hyrule Field chasm when Link scares him so badly that he almost falls to his death. Despite being told by character after character that he needs to stop sneaking up on people, Link just can't help himself. Players from Reddit have picked up on Link's uncomfortable habit and turned it into a meme. Some even pointed out that Link's sneakiness doesn't seem to have the same effect on animals since birds and lizards take off the moment he approaches them. The various peoples of Hyrule must not be that tuned into their surroundings. That's all Link is scaring everyone he meets on purpose. The Kingdom of Hyrule is a land of goddesses where powerful magic offers everyone some amazing opportunities. Not all the magic in Hyrule comes from the goddesses though, and not all of it is necessarily good. Still, the darker powers throughout the kingdom have their uses, and Link might want to rely on them every once in a while. During a visit to Lookout Landing's secret bunker, Link can discover a hidden tunnel that supposedly leads into Hyrule Castle itself. The path is blocked by rocks, but with some explosive arrows or certain Zonai devices, Link can blast his way into the tunnel. Trapped inside a prison cell along the path is a horned statue, which speaks to Link when the two meet. The statue explains that a goddess trapped it here ages ago, and then it offers Link a deal with the statue's side quest. The horned statue's origins are anything except clear, but the deal it offers is pretty straightforward, much like that of his Breath of the Wild counterpart. Link can sell either a heart or a stamina bar to the statue for 100 rupees. Then for 120 rupees, Link can buy that essence back, but he can convert it into whichever stat he wants. Essentially, the deal lets you swap hearts for stamina or vice versa for a small fee. The horned statue is definitely a useful tool, but we have to wonder what its real motives are, and why it was trapped by a goddess in the first place. Koroks are back in Tears of the Kingdom, but this time around their problems are simpler, and their puzzles are much more open-ended. The Koroks that players encounter throughout the game are traveling the lands of Hyrule, and they're usually traveling in pairs. Carrying around massive backpacks and hiking for hours can be exhausting for creatures who are so small, so players will usually find one exhausted Korok who has been separated from their friend. Bringing the two back together makes for a short puzzle, and the reward is, of course, a couple of Korok seeds. Koroks, like all other organic material, can't be picked up with Ultra Hand, but their backpacks certainly can. More often than not, the easiest solution is to attach the backpack to a wagon or custom-built car and drive over to the Korok's companion. Players have gotten a bit more inventive than that. Some have built massive spring-loaded catapults that can launch a Korok across an entire lake. Others have gone ahead and built a car before attaching the Korok to a wheel's axle rather than letting them take a short rest in the back. Now, it's possible some players are working out their frustration after Nintendo trolled them with Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild, but as long as all the Koroks are being reunited, who's gonna complain? By the time Tears of the Kingdom starts, Link is a fully grown adult with plenty of adventuring under his belt. If you count the years he spent in the Resurrection Shrine, this Link is the oldest in the entire series. Either way, he's definitely old enough to decide for himself whether or not he wants to risk his life for the sake of Hyrule. And he's definitely old enough to know that kids shouldn't be asked the same question.
That's not fair at all! You know I can handle it!
On his way to the Wind Temple, Link stops by Rito Village to check in on its inhabitants. Thanks to a magical blizzard blanketing their homeland, the Rito are all in a tough place. They're running out of food and don't have an easy way to contact anyone else in Hyrule. One Rito in particular, Tabor, is extremely worried because his son Tulin flew off into the blizzard, determined to find a way to stop it on his own. As fate would have it, Link finds Tulin just before he reaches the Wind Temple. Does he tell the young Rito to go home to his father? No, Link enlists Tulin in his assault on the temple, and the two of them stop the blizzard together. Afterward, Link and Tulin return to Rito Village, and Tabor tells Tulin that he's finally come of age as a warrior, gifting his son his prized bow as a sign of his new status. Apparently, it really is better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Addison is one of the many quirky characters that Link will encounter on his journeys through Hyrule. Addison has one passion in life, and is President Hudson of the Hudson Construction Company. He's traveling the entire kingdom to put up signs of Hudson, but he isn't a particularly skilled construction worker himself. Time and time again, Addison finds himself desperately holding onto a sign to prevent it from toppling over. That's where Link comes in. He can tell Addison to let the sign go, prompting the other man to ask Link if he's going to support the president. Forward-thinking players will have already grabbed some nearby building materials to construct a makeshift support that will keep Addison's sign from smashing into the ground. The rest of us will have no idea what Addison is really asking, and will probably try to Ultra Hand the sign before it falls. The sound of Addison's heartbroken cries as President Hudson collapses will haunt our dreams. The game really sets players up to let Addison down, no pun intended, at least the first time that they encounter him.
The blade that shatters so easily against my power cannot save you from me.
Tears of the Kingdom opens with a fairly traditional hook for a Zelda game. While exploring some caves and tunnels beneath Hyrule Castle, Link and Zelda accidentally awaken an ancient evil. The world begins to shake and the ground starts to collapse. Zelda falls into a bottomless pit, and Link dives after her, but he's too late. She disappears, apparently via magical means, and Link is saved by the spirit of Rauru, the first king of Hyrule. After that point, Link is, in theory, trying to figure out what happened to Princess Zelda and how to bring her back to his Hyrule. All the main quest missions point in that direction to one degree or another. But that doesn't mean that all of us spent our hours in the game trying to get to the bottom of that particular mystery. There's almost too much to do in Hyrule. From exploring caves and flying out of Skyview Towers, to aiding Koroks and offering support to poor Addison. A million different side activities can distract players from the game's main story. almost anyone who picks up Tears of the Kingdom is going to spend dozens of hours exploring, side questing, and building beautifully flawed vehicles. After 50 or more hours flying over Hyrule, digging into its underground caverns and clearing out the local monster population, does anyone really remember what they started out doing? Sure, Link cares about Zelda, but he's also got some more mushrooms to collect and new recipes to discover.